Harvest Moon, the casual series with heavy emphasis on farming. The series holds a very special place in many of our hearts, and that is why we are huge fans of them. But in this video, we're going to be looking at the top 5 Harvest Moon games of all time. So here we go. Harvest Moon Back to Nature came out on December 16, 1999 in Japan. But in North America, it came out in November 22nd of 2000, almost a year later. Because this game came out after Harvest Moon 64, it is well known that this game used identical character models to Harvest Moon 64. However, the reason why this game is really well loved is for numerous reasons. For one, it fits well in the norm of what people expect a Harvest Moon game to be. Because compared to many of the newer Harvest Moon games, this one is more simplistic, yet the gameplay is still fairly there. For example, it's very basic in terms of growing crops, raising animals, and also befriending people as well as getting married. But the game is also known for having a very fast-paced nature, which really makes it well loved. The basis of the story is as follows. As a young boy, the main character went to his grandfather's farm for the summer. His grandfather was too busy taking care of the farm to spend much time with him, so the boy explored the town and countryside on his own. 10 years later, however, years after his grandfather's death, the boy, now a grown man, returns to the town to take over the farm, and thus, the character takes control. Another really well-loved aspect of the game is the fact that there are numerous festivals and a really high amount of social life. For example, the player can participate in any number of activities such as betting on horse races, dating, and taking part in festivals. Through time, you will befriend people and you will eventually get married. One thing that is really well known is that this game is only playable as a boy. However, eventually for the PSP, a girl version was released which we call Harvest Moon Boy and Girl. And overall, the game was really well loved. Harvest Moon Magical Melody came out in November 10th, 2005 for Japan. However, in North America it came out in March 28th, 2006, about half a year later. The game did eventually get re-released for the Wii years later, in August 25th of 2009. However, this exact version of the game got rather mixed reviews for several reasons. For one, the controls were a bit odd, but the second thing was the fact that they completely removed the option to play as a girl. Now, placing it as number 4 of all time completely dismisses the fact that it came out for the Wii, even though ironically the gameplay that you see on screen is for the Wii. But it's the GameCube version that got the praise after all. Overall, Magical Melody is really well known for having so much to do in the game, so much. For one, there are 100 notes you must collect. Even though you only need 50 to technically beat the game, a 100 note completion is the 100% completion equivalent of this game. Getting all 100 notes does require a significant amount of time, but that's the fun of the game, because there's so much to do. The goal of the game is just like most Harvest Moons. Grow crops, raise animals, befriend townsfolk, and eventually get married and have a family. However, while you're doing that, it's also important to be collecting all 100 notes, because the more notes you get, the more progression you get towards the story. The story is rather simple. The Harvest Goddess has been turned to stone because people don't love anymore. However, while collecting notes, you will eventually be able to free the Harvest Goddess. Now you are competing with Jamie, the rival of the town. Overall, it's not difficult to defeat Jamie in terms of rivalry, but it is difficult to obtain all notes. The game is also well known for being one of the first games in the history of the series to introduce move-ins, as well as move-outs. Basically, once you meet certain criteria, specific people are able to move into the town. However, by neglecting them, they will be able to move out of the town, which you don't want to do. In terms of gameplay, the game is known for being a little bit sluggish compared to previous games, but at the same time it does feel a little bit more realistic, despite the characters looking like bobbleheads. But overall, the gameplay is still very fun, which is why it's really well loved. That's Magical Melody, a really well loved typical Harvest Moon game. Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town was released on April 18th, 2003 in Japan. In North America, it came out in November 17th of the same year, so not much later. Overall, the game is known for being an enhanced remake of Harvest Moon Back to Nature, although put the quotations around enhanced because when going from PlayStation to Game Boy Advance, is it really enhanced or not? Either way though, it is a remake of Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Because it's a remake of Harvest Moon Back to Nature, the story is identical to the previous game, in which the character visited the farm as a kid, but eventually 10 years later, the kid, which is now a little bit more grown up, returns to the farm and now takes over the farm. Just like Back to Nature, the gameplay is very, quote, typical of a Harvest Moon game, in which you grow crops, raise animals, and also befriend the town and, well, get married eventually. However, when pointing out the differences between Back to Nature and this one, well, you can say that this game is a little bit more fast-paced. Usually speaking, more fast-paced Harvest Moon games are more well-loved, which is the biggest reason why Harvest Moon 64 is also well-loved, which I'll get to in a bit later. But as you can also see, the graphics also look very cute-like. It's interesting when going online and seeing what is the most cute-like Harvest Moon game. Many people actually vote Mineral Town to be the most cute-like Harvest Moon game because of the way it looks. This game is also well known for offering connectivity with the Nintendo GameCube game called Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But overall, this game was really well loved because of the reasons I mentioned before. The very fun and fast-paced gameplay, the cute music, the cute graphics, and the very high amount of social life. So this game will be one for the ages. Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life is still known to this day as one of the most unique Harvest Moon games of all time, for numerous reasons. First of all, the game came out for the Nintendo GameCube in September 12, 2003 in Japan, and in March 16, 2004 in North America. Now, this game did have two additional versions later released, the first one being Another Wonderful Life, which is essentially the girl version, but it's also for the GameCube. The second version is Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life Special Edition for the PlayStation 2. Keep in mind that this number 2 placing is specifically only for A Wonderful Life for the GameCube. So like I was saying, A Wonderful Life is one of the most unique Harvest Moon games of all time. The biggest reason why is because this game does not follow a, quote, typical Harvest Moon gameplay. Now I know what you're gonna say. Aren't you contradicting yourself because this game is not a typical Harvest Moon gameplay? Well, this game was the exception due to a couple reasons. For one, it has a really big following. People actually really love the game, as well as online you can see many threads detailing information about why this game is still genuinely loved. There's a lot of differences, but here's a couple. So for one, cows will only give milk for approximately 40 days after giving birth, and once they stop giving milk, you actually have to get the cow pregnant again by purchasing a bull or having a bull from another farm impregnate the cow. In other words, it's just like real life. Whereas in pretty much any other Harvest Moon game, cows can give milk infinitely once they grow up, which is very, quote, fake. In this game, crops can only be planted, watered, and harvested one square at a time. As far as time goes, well, one really big thing that Harvest Moon is known for is for having time stop when you are inside a building. A Wonderful Life defeats that norm. Instead, when you're inside a building, time continues to pass second by second on screen. And that second by second on screen applies in general. It does keep passing second by second and it does not pass too fast, unlike most other Harvest Moon games. Another thing, you know when you sleep in a Harvest Moon game how you always wake up at 6 AM? Not in this game. Not in this game unless you get an alarm clock, which is actually very hard to obtain. Once you have an alarm clock, you can then set the time to whatever you want, but in general you will not be able to always automatically wake up at 6 AM. That's another difference. Aside from all the very uniqueness of this game that was really well praised, the game also runs very smoothly in its game engine. Now, compared to the PS2 version, this game is a lot smoother. As far as animals go, well, you can get a horse, you can get cows, you can get your dog, your cat, sheep, goat, chickens, and ducks. Pretty nice, right? As far as crops go, there's a lot, and there's also fruit trees. This game was one of the first that introduced fruit trees, or just fruits in general, being harvested. So overall, the game was well loved. Harvest Moon 64 came out on February 5th of 1999 in Japan, and in December 22nd, 1999 in North America. Overall, this game was a huge step up compared to the two other previous Harvest Moon games. Overall, Harvest Moon 64 was only the third Harvest Moon game released, after Harvest Moon for the Super Nintendo and Harvest Moon Game Boy for the, well, Game Boy. As you can see, this game has identical character models to Harvest Moon Back to Nature, but because this game came out before, technically Back to Nature used the same ones as 64, not the other way around. Harvest Moon 64 is very well known for being super fast paced, and let me tell you, it is super fast paced. First of all, time passes incredibly fast. Your character moves very fast, people move fast, everything is very fast paced, and just by playing it for about 10 minutes, will kind of get you an idea of how fast-paced the game is. Because of its fast pace, it's also well known for being one of the hardest Harvest Moon games to, well, 100%. By 100%ing means that you have to get the perfect ending after 3 years. The game requires you to complete specific certain criteria by certain times, which is almost impossible. It involves a lot of resetting, a lot of this and that, but overall people didn't enjoy the game for its perfection in terms of completion as they enjoyed it for its rich and fast-paced nature. The biggest reason why it was loved is because, well, you feel like there's always something to do. In other Harvest Moon games, after a while you're like, what's next? What to do next? In Harvest Moon 64, you never feel that way because there's always something to do. But overall, the game was well known for revolutionizing the farm simulator genre, which by 1999 there really wasn't that many. So this game was a huge milestone for the genre. But overall, if you look at the reception of all Harvest Moon games, you will see that Harvest Moon 64 is one of the highest, if not the highest, rated game. But that's it. That's Harvest Moon 64. Like I said, iconic game, revolutionizing game, and yeah, pretty amazing. So that was the top 5 Harvest Moon games of all time. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and keep in mind that that was all of them. All the way back from the Super Nintendo Harvest Moon, all the way until Story of Seasons Trio of Towns, the most recent game released. There were plenty of games that I almost wish that could make it to the list, but unfortunately there's just not enough space. So anyway, tell me what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is your favorite Harvest Moon game not here? If it's not, leave a comment and let me know which one. Should I make other similar videos in the future? Maybe the top 5 most hated Harvest Moon games or top 5 worst Harvest Moon games? You know, I don't know, leave a comment, leave a suggestion. So hopefully you enjoyed the video, and like I said before, if you did, please like, comment, and do not forget to subscribe. So I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye everyone, have a great day.